Hello, and welcome to episode 5 of Harmonious World. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to some of the past episodes. I'm Hilary Robertson, and this week I'm joined by eminent soprano Anne Sofie von Otter. I was delighted to interview her, not least because of the recent release of the Philharmonia Baroque production of a song cycle composed by Pulitzer Prize winner Caroline Shaw. Philharmonia Baroque Orchestra and Chorale breaks new ground. They're a pioneering organisation in bridging new music with old instruments. And that's why they commissioned Caroline Shaw to create a collection of new music, but including the Is a Rose trilogy. That's 3 works composed specifically for Anne Sofie von Otter. The first is Red Red Rose, which premiered at Walt Disney Concert Hall and then toured the US and Canada. The second work, The Edge, was premiered in 2017. And the final work in the trilogy, And So, had its world premiere to a sold-out audience at Alice Tully Hall at the Lincoln Center. Please listen to this recording if you possibly can. The Philharmonia Baroque Orchestra and Chorale are simply beautiful, and Anne Sofie von Otter's soprano soars above it. It's a beautiful creation, but it's also a beautiful performance. It was recorded in March and October 2019, and it's out now. As you can imagine, I had a lot of questions lined up to ask Anne Sofie von Otter, and it was a real honour to speak to her. And you're in Sweden, is that right?
Yes, I'm in the country outside Stockholm.
Lovely. And how is it over there?
It's been raining today, and otherwise we've had a wonderful spring and a wonderful summer so far.
Yeah.
And it's very beautiful. It's still light, of course, and it's looking very lovely.
Yes. Oh well, it's really nice to speak to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I understand that we're sort of fairly pressed for time, so I won't waste too much time. But I'd really like to know a bit about your background. Obviously, I've sort of read a little bit, but you can perhaps tell me in your own words how you came to opera.
Well, how I came to opera, I was told to do opera, but I think you mean how did I come to classical music and to singing?
Yes,
I mean
yes.
opera. Yeah,
Yes.
well, as a small child, I went to ballet classes as lots of little girls and even little boys do, and I loved that. And at the end of every lesson, the teacher played a little single vinyl of the name is gone right now, but it's a minuet that I loved, and that sort of I could feel the joy. I very strongly felt this joy of listening to music and what it did to me, and from then on, I've always sung. Well, even as a not apart from the ballet thing, I always sang with my mother. She played a little bit of piano, so she would play and I sang, and I've always sung, but I had no fantasies of becoming a singer or a musician until in my teens, where I sort of felt that maybe this is so important to me that maybe this is what I should be doing in some way, but I didn't know how. I I didn't know exactly what, in which sense. So I did this 4-year course of music teaching. So I got a degree in that at the Academy of Music in Stockholm. And then just sort of slipped into, well, I sang choir. I was a choir singer. And then suddenly I was given solos and it went from there.
Wow.
So it was not a dream. It sort of just came, and I'm very grateful for that, because I think that was a good way for me to get into it.
Yes, and you've certainly had a very interesting career, haven't
I
you? I
have,
mean, you've sung all around the world.
yes.
You've been to London many times to the Opera House in Covent Garden.
Yes, my career started in Britain, in London. For the first 10 years of my career, London was the place I went to most frequently. I sang at Wigmore Hall and the Albert Hall and the Festival Hall, and many productions at Covent Garden. And then, that sort of stopped or became less. And then Paris was my focus for about 10 years. It's, it goes in cycles. And now I tend to sing more in Germany, maybe. But certainly my start was in London. I studied 1 year at the Guildhall, and I found a manager in London, and so maybe that was the main reason. And I was, in the beginning of my career, I did so much work with John Eliot Gardiner, and that sort of also established me as a singer in London.
So can you talk to me a little bit about this album? The album is stunning, with Caroline Shaw and the Philharmonia Baroque Orchestra, and she wrote the Rose trilogy for you.
Yes.
And it's just a beautiful work. How did that come about?
Caroline Shaw was introduced to me as a composer, as a name, by the alto player in Brooklyn Rider String Quartet, a wonderful string quartet from Brooklyn. And we recorded a CD and did many concerts together, and we are still collaborating. And they said we were putting this program together with new music, contemporary music. And they suggested Caroline, and she wrote a piece for us, which I loved. And then when the idea came up with Philharmonia Baroque to commission a new piece written for me and these Baroque instruments, I suggested immediately Caroline's name, and so that's how it came about. So she wrote one song, The Red, Red Rose, and Nick McGeegan, who's the chief conductor of Philharmonia Baroque, he fell in love with her music as well. So they did more with her, and that the choir piece was commissioned, and then 2 more songs for me. So the songs can be done one by one. You don't need to do them all 3 together. So that's how it came about.
And were you involved in the sort of inspiration behind any of the 3 songs, or the creative process, or was it simply a kind of, she went off and wrote them and brought them back and you sang them?
Well, more or less that's what happened. But I think when we first got to know each other, I think there was a little bit of talk about what kind of words, what kind of poetry did appeal to me. And so we probably talked a little bit about that. And she listened to me, what had I recorded, and which of my program CDs did she particularly like. So the first song she wrote for me in Brooklyn Rider was an old French text. But The Red, Red Rose is Burns. She looked around. I didn't have a huge input because, as I always say, music is my first love, and the words can be the telephone book for all I can. That's exaggerating it a little bit, but yeah. It's absolutely the case that the music is so important to me that if I also happen to like the words, that's wonderful. But if I don't, I can still sing it if I like the music.
Right. That's a really interesting take on the role of a singer. I mean, do you find that have there been occasions in the past where you've sung something and the music has shone for you, but the words have been less accessible for you? Or,
yes, definitely. It happens all the time. Sometimes I don't really understand the text. I mean, I understand word for word, but I don't get what the writer actually means, or and sometimes the text can be very banal and still be fantastic when it's put to music, like the songs of Cécile Chaminade. The music is delightful, but when the critical person reads the text, they think, oh, this is so banal, and that she can't be a good composer if the words are as banal as that. But I don't think like that at all. I think if the music is good, then everything is fine.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's really lovely. Yes, so the red rose is I think my favourite track on that CD, and I think it's the way the melody flows, and it's
Mhm.
just beautiful. It's just
Yeah,
and it's lovely to hear actually the combination of the modern composition alongside the Baroque instruments.
yeah. It's a fantastic juxtapositioning of the Baroque sort of rhythms almost and the sounds, but then you can still hear that it's not Baroque music. It's a really clever combination.
Yeah. Are there plans to perform this once lockdown is all over and we're actually going back to performing again?
Yes, well, I know that Philharmonia Baroque is so happy with this music and this disc, and they love Caroline to bits, as do I. That they are hoping that we can do it together some more, but no concrete plans, and that's becoming even more difficult now, of course.
Of course, yes, yes.
I often suggest these songs, particularly the Red Rose, if I'm doing projects with the Baroque Orchestra in Europe, then Handel and Bach, and then I suggest why don't we try Caroline's pieces?
Yes, I mean, it's lovely to. I'm all for promoting the work of modern composers, but
Mhm.
also modern women composers, because
Yeah.
that's an important task, I think. So, how has lockdown been for you?
Well, it's been spring and the weather's been fantastic, and I'm not I'm not in the beginning of my career, starting out with a wonderful maybe opera project with an exciting conductor ahead of me. If that were the case, I would be very disappointed and feel very low, I'm sure. But I have been there and done that. So for me to be at home for well, I'll be in Sweden from the middle of March until at least the beginning of September, and it's fantastic. I've been well. I haven't had this horrible virus, and neither has, touch wood, anyone in my immediate family or friend circle of friends. But so in some ways, it's been a very positive experience in
Yes,
some ways, and in of course in all the other ways it's been terrible because for society and for everyone working within the cultural sector, it's very disheartening, and many other people too are losing their jobs or have lost their jobs, so it's very, very hard. But point of view of nature and being in Sweden, it's been not bad at all for
good.
me.
Yes. Well, it's
I,
about seeing the positives.
I put programs together and we record them and they get streamed or you put them on Facebook or whatever. So I've kept myself busy doing what I love to do, sing.
Can I talk to you a little bit about some of the roles that you've played? Because it's an impressive list of characters within some of the classic operas that you have portrayed on stage.
Mhm.
Do you have favourites? Do you have ones that really speak to you?
Well, I've done at the beginning of my career were all the trouser roles, and I really loved doing them then. And of course, Octavian is such a fabulous role because it had such variety. It's dramatic, it's funny, it's sad, it's poetic. But I am the type of person and type of musician. I like to try new things, and I don't like to linger for too long with one role. So I was pretty happy to leave that role behind, and then I went on to do Carmen at some point, and that was fantastic. That was such a in such an exciting experience to do Carmen. And then lately I've done, this weird woman in The Exterminating Angel by Thomas Addis. That was
Yes.
beautiful. And Lulu, the Gershwitz in Lulu is also a very it's a very good role, even though it's not there are small roles or the secondary roles that can be very fulfilling to do. And of course, that's where I am now at this point in my career, where I'm not doing the leading roles as such. But I don't mind at all, because if you have a good director, you can get a lot of enjoyment out of it. And right now, when COVID broke out, I was meant to be doing the Countess in Pique-Dame by Tchaikovsky.
Oh, yes.
Queen of Spades. So I'm sure that would have been interesting too. I love it all.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I will point people to your website so that they can see a little more about you. There's some lovely photos on there. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
So
thank you.
Yes, yeah, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see you perform on stage. And I would love to hear some of this Caroline Shaw work performed. That would be wonderful.
Yes.
So yes,
thank you.
So I hope you bring them to London. So
yes, that would be nice.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
I so enjoyed interviewing Anne Sofie von Otter, and I hope you enjoyed listening to it. Thank you for joining me on episode 5 of Harmonious World. And please do leave me a review if you can. And if you subscribe, you'll know when the next episode comes out. So thanks for joining me again on Harmonious World, and I look forward to speaking to you next time. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.